मेरे कह सकते हैं कई मायनों में इंस्पिरेशन है। ही इज वन ऑफ द कूलेस्ट पर्सन्स आई हैव मेट इन माय लाइफ। ऐसे व्यक्तित्व को परिभाषित करना जिसके पास प्रोफेशनल नॉलेज और प्रोफेशनल डिटेल्स की जानकारी हो, और साथ ही साथ उन गूढ़ विषयों को, उन कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सब्जेक्ट्स को उतनी ही आसानी से और उतनी ही फियरलेस नेस या निर्भयता से लोगों को बताने का मादा हो, जिगरा हो। रतुल्दा, as I affectionately call him, happens to fulfill both these roles. I regard him as my elder brother, and he has given me the liberty to refer to him as Da, which is a short form of Dada. तो रतुल दा से मेरी मुलाकात हुई थी अप्रैल के फर्स्ट वीकेंड पे। इससे पहले मैं जानता था कि उन्होंने एक किताब लिखी है जो मैं सभी को रिकमेंड करना चाहूंगा, विच इज कलेक्शन ऑफ शॉर्ट स्टोरीज टाइटल्ड सूत्रधार। लेकिन उनसे मिलके मुझे उनके व्यक्तित्व के बारे में पता चला। भारत से बहुत ऐसे कम लोग हुए हैं जिन्होंने इंटरनेशनल गेमिंग इंडस्ट्री में एक ऊंचा मुकाम हासिल किया है, और रतुल्दा इज वन ऑफ दोज पर्सनालिटीज हु हैव मेड इट प्रीटी गुड। कभी विस्तार से रतुल्दा के साथ मैं कामना करता हूं हमको चर्चा करने का मौका मिले, ताकि पता चले कि उनका बैकड्रॉप गेमिंग इंडस्ट्री में कितना वृहद और विस्तृत रहा है। नॉट ओनली इन इंडिया, he has also got extensive exposure of the international gaming scenarios outside our country also. And with this insight, he explored the basic nuances of what goes on in the digital ecosystem. डिजिटल दुनिया, आभासी दुनिया, हम में से कई लोग आज अपने स्मार्टफोन से, अपने लैपटॉप से इस सत्र में जुड़े हैं। इस सत्र के बारे में जानकारी भी अपने स्मार्टफोन से, लैपटॉप स्क्रीन से मिली है। लेकिन इसी स्मार्टफोन स्क्रीन और इसी लैपटॉप स्क्रीन को किस प्रकार से करंट नैरेटिव के एक बहुत सशक्त, पावरफुल टूल में बदलने के लिए जो तकनीकें काम कर रही हैं, जो अप्रोचेस काम कर रही हैं, रतुल्दा को इसकी बहुत विस्तार से जानकारी है। और इसीलिए इन्होंने अपने बहुत ही शानदार गेमिंग करियर को आहुति देकर, उससे ब्रेक लेकर अपनी इच्छाओं को परस्यू करना, और खासकर इन विषयों को लोगों के सामने ले जाकर इनके बारे में लोगों को जागरूक करना, इसके लिए इन्होंने अपना कॉर्पोरेट करियर 2019 में छोड़ा, आफ्टर एन एक्सटेंसिव मोर देन अ डेकेड ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस। और उसके बाद इन्होंने क्रिएटिव परस्यूट्स को और इन सारे विषयों को आगे ले जाना चालू किया। तो जैसा मैंने बताया, एक इनकी किताब है सूत्रधार, और एक रिसेंटली नई किताब आई है जिसके क्यूरेटर हैं। क्यूरेटर इन द सेंस कि इन्होंने अपने अंडर बहुत सारे यंग ऑथर्स को या शौक के लिए लिखने वालों को साथ लाए, और एक किताब शेयर्ड रूट्स टेल फ्रॉम द इंडोस्फीयर, इसके संकलन करता है, उनको ग्रूम किया और उनकी कहानियों की श्रृंखला को प्रकाशित किया, जिसे इंडिक एकेडमी ने अभी प्रकाशित किया है। और इसके साथ ही उनको फिल्म का भी बहुत ज्ञान है। तो मैं मानता हूं कि जितने भी सॉफ्ट पावर के आयाम होते हैं, और खासकर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया में जितने डायमेंशन है, गेमिंग इंडस्ट्री हो, सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स हो, या उभरती हुई नई टेक्नोलॉजीज हो, रतुल्दा हैज एन एक्सपर्टीज ओवर ऑल ऑफ देम। नॉट ओनली द एक्सपर्टीज, बट ही हैज ऑल्सो सीन दीज टेक्नोलॉजीज फ्रॉम द बैक एंड। जिस टेक्नोलॉजी को हम एंड यूजर की तरह, एक अंतिम उपभोक्ता की तरह यूज कर रहे हैं, उन टेक्नोलॉजी के पीछे जाके उन्होंने इसकी एक्सपर्टीज जारी की है। और आज के इस सत्र में वो हमारे साथ यही साझा करना चाहेंगे कि हमें लगता है कि हम इन टेक्नोलॉजी के एंड यूजर हैं, बट इन टेक्नोलॉजिकल कंपनीज के लिए हम उनका प्राइमरी एपेटाइट है। मतलब हम उनके ग्राहक ना होके वो हमें कंज्यूम करने जा रहे हैं, और किस प्रकार ये टेक्नोलॉजी के अलग अलग डायमेंशन आज और भविष्य में हमारे लिए घातक सिद्ध हो सकते हैं, इसके बारे में वो हमारे साथ विचार रखेंगे। मैं हृदय से उनका धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करना चाहूंगा कि इन्होंने अपने व्यस्त शेड्यूल से हमारे लिए समय निकाला, और आज इतने महत्वपूर्ण विषय जिसके बारे में इंडिया में बहुत ज्यादा लोग नहीं हैं जो लोगों के सामने इस विषय को इतनी स्पष्टता से ले जाए, इस विषय को हमारे समक्ष रखने के मेहनत की। और अविलंब, विदाउट एनी फर्दर अडो, मैं रतुल्दा से अनुरोध करता हूं कि वे कृपया आए और आज इस विषय पे, माया युद्ध के विषय पे, जो 24 घंटे 7 दिन और 365 दिन डिजिटल स्क्रीन्स के माध्यम से एक बायो वेपन के तरह हमें जो सॉफ्ट पावर में प्रोग्राम किया जा रहा है उसके बारे में लोगों को बताएं।
Namaste. I hope I'm audible.
जी
Uh,
रतुल्ला, यू आर ऑडिबल।
Thank you, Anugrah, for a very gracious introduction. It's indeed my pleasure and privilege to be a part, to be speaking with all of you. I hope not to bore you too much. And, this is a very part of it is very, very complex. And I'll try to keep it um, as simple as possible so that because there's a lot of information that will start coming through so that you can contemplate and take this session as a jumping off point to go deeper into a lot of these things. All right, so let me share the presentation first. All right, are you able to see this?
जी रतुल्ला, इट्स विजिबल।
Okay. All right. So, first of all, so Maya Yuddha is a term I coined because essentially what is happening is that we are not even aware that this Yuddha is actually happening. It's taking place. A lot of you would be like, कौन सा युद्ध चल रहा है भाई? What war are you kind of talking about? And I hope that as we kind of start going through the session, you kind of realize that okay, what actually is happening. So in order to start off on my yuddha, I wanted to what is this? I wanted to kind of talk about what is this Mahayuddha? It is a hybrid war which is raging across the world. Anybody who is connected to a digital device, which is most of humanity, is willingly or unwillingly a part of this war. And they are also victims of this war. Just by the act of being part of a digital ecosystem in which you are being served content, you are operating it, you are using it for your transactions, you are using it for your daily needs, you are being pulled into the uh, web of this larger power struggle that is happening, and you are also enabling that power struggle to kind of continuing by that power struggle to continue by being a part of that larger digital ecosystem. It sounds very scary, uh, but if we take a look back at it, if we take a step back and start to really deconstruct what is happening here, you'll see that you'll see that you see the structure of this particular Maya Yuddha. And once you see the structure, you can create strategies in terms of uh, how you can defend against it, and how you can actually, escape this particular, information war, hybrid war that is actually happening. So we start off with what is a war? War is a contest of dominance, and you win war by gaining more and more power. And power is the ability to impose your will on another person. If I have power on you, that means that whatever I wish, you will start doing it. And wars are fought for like larger aims to dominate, and for particular strategies, for particular war goals, basically. So previously, what used to happen is that wars are mainly fought on four dimensions. They are violence, which is the kinetic dimension. There are economic wars, which are fought over resources, whether it's petrol, whether it is, uh, previously it was gold or stuff like that. So there are economic wars. So I'll give an example. So kinetic war is what's probably happening right now in Ukraine and Russia. So they're actually shooting bullets and missiles, and they're actually fighting each other. Economic war, one of the most interesting examples is the 1973, when OPEC, the Middle Eastern oil producing nations, they stopped the supply of oil to US, Canada, and the entire Western world in order to support the Egyptians and the Lebanese governments in the when they're fighting a war against Israel. Um, Third part is cultural and indoctrination, which is things like how do you actually get your population in a way that it supports your war games, and it supports your war aims, and it's able to kind of take on all sorts of difficulties upon itself while being focused on those particular war aims. The terrorist state of Pakistan is culturally indoctrinated to indoctrinates mostly all its population to actually uh, at a constant state of war, to prepare for the constant state of war against India. That's an example, just neighborhood. And you have political wars, which are institutions which allow all of these things to kind of take into which kind of harnesses all of these things, and creates a strategy to actually fight and do the actual planning and everything. It is done through institutions. um but nowadays, wars are not first fought with bullets. war the Wars have evolved as more and more powerful weapons have come into human hands, like the nuclear weapons. The type of wars we fight have evolved. So one part of it is due to weapons. The other part of it is due to technology, electronic technology, as well as information technology becoming more and more widespread. The shape of war has evolved, and it has evolved from over the period of the Cold War. So whatever I'm talking, wherever we are today, has not begun today. It had begun in the 1920s and 30s, and it has evolved and evolved and evolved. And it had one iteration during the World War. It had a second iteration during the Cold War. It had, and then post Cold War, when the world turned unipolar with US as the single pole of dominance, the shape of that war started to change and change and change. And the overt military action, the kinetic wars that we see, drastically reduced post World War, because of nuclear weapons, because of this mutually assured destruction that that was there in the American and Soviet camps. But that did not mean that people stopped being enemies or people stopped fighting. They just started to fight at different levels, and they used different instruments to fight. And that is what we are going to talk about. I don't know how many of you have heard of this term called fourth generation warfare or fifth generation warfare. Um, this was something that military theorists like William Lent actually, fourth generation warfare is a term that was coined by the military theorist William Lent, and it talks about something known as hybrid wars, which is basically using technology and soft power to mentally compel your opponent to do your bidding. And this sounds very weird. Like, how can somebody mentally compel me if he's not putting a gun to my head? And I am going to tell you that it is absolutely possible. And it is not only possible, it is actually like it is like over the last 20 or 30 years, it is one of the most common ways in how certain countries and certain entities which are transnational, not even companies, not even countries, but larger corporations or larger conglomerates, or certain translational entities like the WEF, World Economic Forum, etc., etc., use this to create conditions in which you apparently think that you are acting out of free will, but you are actually mentally and psychologically conditioned to act in a certain way. And that is what is known as hybrid warfare. And that is what, with the advent of, social media, with the advent of digital screens that are coming into which are, omnipotent in our life, that is what is what we can call Maya Yuddha. How does this happen? How are we mentally compelled to do certain things? For that, you have to understand that our mind is a battleground. And think back at yourself, think about yourself and see that how do you understand what is going on in the world? When I say that, okay, every person has a particular thought process and thinking, they're influenced by certain things. And the four things that influence that particular uh, what your perception of reality is. The first one is experience. Like, my reality would be dependent upon what I experience. My bahar bazaar mein gaya, mera, how I interfaced with the police, or how I interfaced when I went out to seek a job, etc., etc. That is my personal experience. That gives me a certain frame of reference. Next, we have education. Like, what have I been taught as a kid? And that actually hardwires a lot of what our later on thinking, how that evolves, how we perceive the world, how we even process certain things that are happening to us or happening across the country, is actually hard coded into our mind at the time of education itself. And this is something that is very clear when you see that somebody coming up from an Indian education system versus somebody coming up from, let's say, a Pakistan education system, or somebody coming up from an American education system. When they get the same data point, they will perceive that in radically different ways, because they have been conditioned to interpret data in a certain way. Next is information. um, how do we know what is actually happening in the world? Previously, people used to, read newspapers and watch, Doordarshan, DD News, to get information about the world. Even before that, you had to go to the market, and there people would tell you that, okay, ye chal raha hai. Or you go to the, chai shop, and then you kind of discuss, acha, ye chal raha hai, usne bola ye aisa chal raha hai. Nowadays, information is something that is bombarding us 24/7. You open your phone on WhatsApp, there is information. You go to social media, there is information. Ye ho raha, ye ho raha, ye ho raha, ye ho raha. This is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And there is this constant barrage of information that, the human mind is probably not evolved to even process in totality. So what we do is, based upon our education and based upon, our experience, we start filtering out information. We start interpreting. We start.
Sorry, Ratulda, for the disturbance. You may please continue.
No, no. So, so basically, we are being constant, what we know about the world is the information that is coming to us, and the information sources right now are the digital screens. Are like the more information sources that you have, the more the information bombardment, and there is more chance of, getting confused, because there are just so many sources that are actually hitting us. And finally, it is entertainment. Entertainment is, how our mind unwinds. And entertainment is probably the strongest cultural messaging if done correctly. And we'll talk about entertainment in a bit more detail later on in the session. But entertainment is one of the ways in which, you know, we try to figure out uh, the social and the public morality of the society that we live in. What is aspirational? What is good? What is bad? Um, entertainment is the medium which tells us that okay, this is acceptable, and this is what our society or what we should target to be. The heroic figure is different in different cultures. So if you look at a heroic figure in Pakistani cinema versus a heroic figure in Telugu cinema, even though they are both heroic figures, they are completely different. They would be completely different, and that is because the entertainment is a mirror of the society that is actually producing it, as well as a lighthouse saying that okay, this is what is aspirational, this is what heroism means, or this is what a villain is, etc., etc. Now these four things, experience, information, education, and entertainment, are the way in which the outside world, the world outside me, is talking to me as a person. What has happened in recent times, in the last 15 years, is that experience component that we have, the personal experience component, especially in urban areas, when you are getting more and more connected, when you are getting more and more, you are going out of, uh, you know, uh, a, a community living concept into more independent, more nuclear groupings. The the experience that tells you about the world is reducing significantly, and these three other things, education, information, and entertainment, are becoming more and more strong as drivers that are influencing my perception of reality. And the funny thing is that entertainment, education, and information are the three drivers in which we don't have any control. We are only consumers there. You are not sitting in the newsroom of Republic TV. Neither are you deciding on the syllabus for what your child is reading or what you are reading in your colleges, nor are you going and shooting movies with Karan Johar or directing something. The news is coming to you. You are a part of the education system that somebody has designed, and you are consuming the entertainment that is put in front of you in whatever, whether in apps or movies or from wherever you're getting. It's somebody else who is going to. Now, if you take a step forward, that means that information, education, and entertainment are channels for somebody else to feed you with a particular perception of reality. If some and this is the key part to understanding this trick, like this triangle, information, education, and entertainment, is like if somebody really wants to make you view reality itself in a certain way, this is what they are going to change. And once they change that, it is almost impossible for you to not get swayed. If you don't know that this structure, if you don't know that somebody is trying to influence me, you'll see that, oh, this is the world. And that is something that we saw very, very clearly when social media first came into play. And legacy media actually, if you look at post 2004 2006, when social media, Facebook, Orkut, and then Twitter, etc., came into prominence, there was this huge burst, because for the first time in our lives, we got access to both information and entertainment, which was not censored, which somebody else was not deciding. And that was what I would call the Wild West period of social media, in which people actually had power to put and get information any way they wanted. Nowadays it is different, because all the social media and the entertainment houses, they are controlled, and they have become centralized a lot. But in order to understand how you can compel somebody to behave in a particular way, or how you can influence somebody, what is the cornerstone of what we call soft power, you have to understand the importance of these three things. Like whoever controls information, that is news, that is the news that's reaching you. Whoever controls education, that is what you are being taught and what your child is being taught. And whoever controls entertainment, that is whoever tells you the stories of what your society should be, what heroes are, and who the villains are, is actually controlling how you view life and how you view reality itself. And once they control how you view life and how they view reality itself, when you ask a particular question to that particular person, the answer becomes very, very predictable, because you have already been conditioned to say that, oh, this is good, this is bad, this is how the world is, this is how the world is not, this is what I have been taught, and this is fake news, and this is lies, and etc., etc. So this particular, like when you talk about soft power, the basis of soft power is controlling information, is controlling education, is controlling entertainment. um I will There's a lot more to talk on this, but for the sake of time, I'll just move forward. So soft power is not cultural awareness. This is a mistake that most people do. uh, Soft power does not mean that, oh, somebody in New York is doing bhangra, and that means India has a lot of soft power. No, soft power doesn't mean that. Soft, like anything cannot be a power if it is not able to make somebody behave in a way that they would not otherwise do. Cultural awareness is, is something that that India has done really well. Most people across the world have got a particular idea about Indian culture, Bollywood, etc., etc. But none of that can be termed as what we call soft power, because it does not have a coercive element. It does not mean that it does not have the power to make somebody sitting in the US behave in a way that is not that is behave in a way that we would want him to behave, rather than what his or her own self-interest is. So this particular piece, when we are I know, in the next slides I'll talk about how soft power is created. But this misconception that just because somebody is doing a namaste, Justin Trudeau is coming and singing some Hindi song, does not mean that India has a lot of soft power. It does not. Like, cultural awareness is not soft power. Power is always something which is coercive. I know it sounds very, very cynical. Please bear with me, because some of this stuff is, unfortunately very cynical. I have put this photo of the Indian Airlines, hijack, because it was a very good example of, how soft power was used against India. Uh, I don't know how many of you remember this, but the moment the flight was hijacked and it landed in Kandahar, there was this huge mobilization done by people like Kavita Krishnan, etc., who just rushed to the government this thing, and started shouting slogans like, Kashmir de do, hamara log wapas lao, etc., etc., and created an immense pressure on folks like Jaswant Singh and whoever the people in the Vajpayee government were dealing at that time. What happened because of that is that the options, the political options for the government in which they could have handled this, got reduced drastically. Not because they were they had put a gun on our prime minister's head. No, because the public opinion was mobilized, and a media frenzy, and uh, like this huge wall of noise uh, was created, which did not give us any space to think of taking a hardline stance, or think of taking or even deciding to figure out like what kind of negotiation possibilities or what kind of kinetic action possibilities are even feasible at that point. So India actually suffered because we did not have control at that time uh, over the information and the entertainment matrix that existed at that time, and we still don't have control. If you look at the farmer protests that happened, or the CAA protests that happened, it's very clear that that the kind of public opinion and the kind of narrative weight that was mobilized, um, it kind of overwhelms the government and cuts down your ability to act. And this is what soft power is. This is what the essence of hybrid warfare is, that without firing a bullet, you have strategically cornered your opponent into doing things that that are war gamed by you. And I think the one of the greatest things that the Narendra Modi government did was the surgical strikes that went across the border, because it kind of broke that paradigm that we had, that palaces that we had, saying that, oh, we cannot go there because public opinion, etc., etc., etc. So there are so there are ways in which you can kind of if you have a really really strong will to kind of break this. But most times it's a very unequal battle. So yeah, this is one of those things that I consider to be a national shame. And one of the reasons this Kandahar surrender happened was because of the hybrid warfare that was waged upon India after the hijacking had happened, to cut down our options. And that is how serious this thing is. um, so let's kind of talk about a bit more about how that mental hijack that I was talking about happens. So basically what happens is that in any society there is there's a particular discourse. And what we mean by discourse is that the members of that society talk about certain things, engage with each other uh, on certain topics based on a shared understanding. And that box of shared understanding are called ideological boundaries or red lines. So right now in India, one of the red lines that we have is that like, even if somebody is a you know total crook, he would say that, no, I have full faith in the judiciary. That's a red line, because that's an institution that every Indian says that, okay, this is one arbiter. And there are multiple. So one of the another ideological or a red line in the Indian society uh, would probably be the armed forces, and that we have this immense amount of respect for the for the jawans and the members of for the armed forces. So anybody who directly goes against them is automatically out of the red line and has to face a lot of severe consequences. So basically the this this space in which all the topics that can be debated and discussed is called the Overton window. I'm sure many of you have heard of this term. It just means, it's a very simple thing. It just means that, okay, Overton window is this space of acceptability where conversations can happen. And so people keep talking about the Overton window, and they debate and discuss things and all of that. For every Overton window, there are these what we called gatekeepers of consequences. So if you go, if anybody strays out of this this Overton window, they have to face consequences. So for example, if you think that you go and abusing some Supreme Court judge or something like that, there is a consequence. You will be pulled up and you have to pay a fine, and or go to jail for disrespecting the judiciary and all of that. The stronger these gatekeepers are, the stronger these red lines are. And when the gatekeeper fails to do his job, when there is no consequence for breaking the red line, that's when the ideological boundary starts to fall. And that's when the other side, like, that's when the Overton window starts, what we call Overton window shifting. That's when it starts shifting. One good example would be a few years back when people just marched into the Red Fort. It was something that I had considered like, okay, this is an impossible thing. Common people, like some random people going into Red Fort and doing all sorts of activism there. But because there was no retribution, because the gatekeepers of consequence did not immediately act upon it, the Overton window for that particular day, like what activism can be, that has shifted in our country. And that has enabled a lot of subsequent things that's been happening. And that's a very recent example. If you cast back your mind, there would be a ton of these examples. The idea behind this particular session is that when you see this kind of things, and you start thinking back about what has happened in our country, or what has happened in the world for the past few years, you start to relate, and okay, so this is how things are. So basically, what there is the discourse has got its ideological pulse. People want to bring the conversation to something or something else. So there was like when Ram Mandir was inaugurated, the ideological pull happened in such a way that a lot more other things started coming into like we had the Kashi Vishwanath survey happen. We had a bunch of other things start to playing out, and people were actually talking about it, because the Overton window, because of the actions, had shifted to a certain degree. Now and this is something that is not static. This keeps, so now after the election results or something like that, the Overton window has shifted, and the kind of conversations that we are having are also shifting. So this is something that is a constant churn in a democratic society. The wider this Overton window is, means that the more are the topics that are being discussed and debated in a particular year. In a totalitarian country, like for example, like China, this Overton window is like really, really small. It is, because there are severe consequences for going. It's not a democracy; it's a one-party state. So there are severe consequences for going against the party line. So the amount of things that you can discuss and debate and actually radically talk about is very, very less. So for China, this window would be like really, really small. Whereas in India, we have so many perspectives, so many ideologies, so many different kind of people. So for us, the Overton window is actually quite large in terms of what kind of things we are able to talk about. So once you understand this, once you understand that discourse, that a particular particular society um, has got a discourse within it, and this discourse is what generates a policy. It generates a public mood. It generates what kind of what kind of actions and what are acceptable to a society. We move on to the next part, which is the assembly line. And this is how actual what we call as fifth generation warfare, or hybrid warfare, this is how actually mechanically it happens. Now once I show this, you'll instantly realize, who these people are in India. At least I hope so. So, once I show this, you'll instantly realize, who these people are in India. At least I hope so. So, once I show this, you'll instantly realize, who these people are in India. At least I hope so. So, once I show this, you'll instantly realize, who these people are in India. So basically what happens is that there is an initial intervention by what we can call a hostile power in terms of, like somebody who wants to wage an ideological war upon us. This hostile power um, captures institutions. One really good example that I can give um, would be the appointment of Nurul Hassan as the education secretary by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, who actually, filled the, education syllabus and everything with, Marxist literature and all of that. What happens is once an institution is captured, they hire everybody based on ideology and not merit. So even if you are uh, the most brilliant researcher and the most brilliant student, you will not get hired, or you will not get promoted, or you will not get, you will not get a grant because the parameter for for those things stops being merit and becomes ideology. Ideology acts the filter for those people. That gives rise to, like, that makes the entire institution mediocre. But people who are waging an ideological war upon you don't care about the mediocrity of the institution. They want ideologically aligned people. Whoever is already there, that ideological conformity is forced upon them. They have to conform or they face consequences. As I said, no grants, no promotions, probably, not even a pass mark. And this is very, very common across academia, across the world. This is not an Indian problem, by the way, solely an Indian problem, by the way. This is common in academia, more or less across the world. And there's a whole literature about how the Soviets and later on the Chinese actually did this on Western institutions, where they captured institutions, and then the ideology of that institution over time completely changed, and the thinking and the output that started to come out of those institutions absolutely changed. And this is not just education. Once you start really looking at it, this is true for entertainment. The kind of movies that are getting made, the kind of scripts that are being written, the kind of the series that are being produced, they are all they're all a product of this this kind of thinking. So once you start forcing ideological conformity, what happens? You start to control and drive narratives, whether it is in education, syllabus. You decide what the syllabus is. You decide what kind of news and what is the spin that is put into that news. You decide what kind of movies get made, what kind of scripts get written, who are your heroes, who are your villains. And I'll give an example. Like, if you look at the Hindi movies of 1950s and 60s, and then you start looking at the Hindi movies of 80s and the 90s, you'll see a drastic shift in terms of who the heroic characters are and what a heroic temperament is. And it is very, very clear. It is clear as daylight. And then you start looking at who is funding those movies, and you'll start understanding, like how this assembly line starts to happen. Operates. Same goes with newsroom. If you look at the way the Kashmir conflict was reported, even by Indian media, forget about foreign media and all that, even by Indian media, how it was created. I think most of you have seen that interview by Barkha Dutt, where she talks about, that the pundits were actually, the target because they had taken over all the jobs in Jammu and Kashmir. So, it was actually a fight against oppression of the pundits instead of, terrorism. So it completely shapes what the narrative is and how the what is the information and what is the entertainment and what is the education that we are receiving. You remember that previous slide where I talked about entertainment, education, information? This is how that gets controlled. So whoever is a part of this gets rewarded. They get grants, they get awards, they get scholarships. And this is like, it's a it's a it's called, in American slang you'd call it a gravy train, that it becomes something that, okay, this is how this particular industry is, this is who I need to, this is how I need to order my thoughts, this is how I need to present things, and if I do this, I'm going to get rewarded. And because of that, you create a whole generation of brainwashed people, like, absolutely, because they have been fed on these, like, that entire generation who has been fed on this syllabus, who have been consuming this entertainment, who have been looking at this news. They are already brainwashed to a certain degree, and then you recruit from that group. You hire from this group based on ideology, and thus a machine is created. This is an infinite loop. This keeps on happening. As long as this particular loop exists, you don't have control over any of this. In a great movie, there was this dialogue कि सरकार उनका है तो क्या हुआ, system तो हमारा है. So when I talk about system, like, the system is this. It is a self-perpetuating loop in which, if you are not part of that ideological ecosystem, if you are not part of, if you do not bow down to this, ideology, you are not going to get influence the syllabus. You are not going to get to influence the newsrooms. You are not going to get to make the movies that you want to make. And you are going to suffer professionally, because you're not going to get your grants, you're not going to get your awards, you're not going to get your scholarships. This is what the system is. This is the assembly line. And it's not one person. You have to understand this. This is a system that you keep on putting people here. They get promoted, they get senior, they get, they get some awards and all of that. And those guys will hire the next generation who will do the exact same thing. And this is going to keep on happening. This piece is basically what the fundamental, when we talk about narratives, when we talk about ideological warfare, when we talk about mind control, the people who are going to do the mind control, people who are going to create the content for you to control your mind, are produced in this fashion. This is the system, basically. Moving on. So now that you have the people and you have the content, how do you reach, how do you make the public take that content, how do you take that content to the public? This is where, in today's day and age, we come to what we call social media. I call them bioweapons, because they are designed to hack our minds, and they are designed to psychologically pollute and compel us to use it. How do they do that? How are these apps psychologically controlling us? Why am I calling them bioweapons? So basically, to understand this, you have to understand how information flows, how knowledge, how how ideas spread. Basically, ideas spread in networks. So suppose I have an idea, I would talk about that idea to like 5 people. I would say, tell it to my friend, I'll tell it to Anugraha, I will tell it to some. Then Anugraha thinks that, oh, out of my five people that I shared my idea with, Anugraha will have that idea and will say that, oh, this is an interesting idea, and he will tell to 10 other people. And out of those 10 people, so that's how, based upon networks, these ideas spread. Before we had social media, most people did not have access to networks. Our networks were really small, like our friends and our family, perhaps our colleagues, but that was a really small thing. So people would write letters to the editor and all of that, and it would depend upon the editor whether they would publish those letters and all of that. But nobody could get their ideas or thoughts out in a very easy manner. It was gate kept very strongly by the by this particular group. When social media came, the network became huge. Suddenly you were exposed to like millions of people, and you could influence n number of peoples and ideas. As I said, it was a wild west period in which ideas started spreading everywhere. That became very, very dangerous, and the people who owned those networks, the people who owned Twitter, or the people who owned Facebook, or the people who owned these other social networks, they started to realize that how data flows in a particular network is actually controlled by the owner of that particular network. So what they did is they created these rules in the name of moderation, in the name of safety, in the name of fact check, whatever, that how they can what we can call how they can manufacture truth instead of the absolute truth, that unfiltered absolute truth that people were expecting. And how does that happen? It happens by, so here's this person, he joins the social media and he accesses huge network. But the social media owner, he can actually, that person can actually put in blockers saying that this particular idea will not spread. This particular, this particular user will not have access to network, or this particular, thought would be, this particular thought will not gain visibility in my network. And they have this power because of something, we call, I think most of you know the term algorithm. So basically, there's a very sophisticated algorithm that runs in the background that completely decides how or what we are seeing in each of the social media apps. And whatever I post or whatever you put in never gets a fair, equal chance with everybody else in terms of visibility. It is subjected to countless number of, how do I put it, checks and balances, and that decides its fate in terms of whether somebody would see what you have posted or whether somebody will not see it. And I'll go to kind of a bit of detail into this, because this is the piece that I had actually shared with Anugrah, sometime back, in terms of how this how the social media content surfacing actually works. How many of you remember this? That a few a few months back, I think we had this thing of what's wrong with India. I think there was some incident with a tourist couple in India, and after that, everything in social media started trending and showing India in very bad light. And then somebody from India actually, hacked it and said that, oh, if I just type what is wrong with India, suddenly my posts are getting like massive visibility. So Indians started, uh, taking advantage of this, and there was this huge digital comeback by the Desi population in X. And this was one of those things where the actual, background algorithm of platforms got exploited by the users. But then they plug the gap, obviously. But this actually tells you that, how certain things get that visibility. And I'll tell you how. So basically, whenever you join any social media, or whenever you join any of these, not just social media, but any of these apps, whether it is Netflix or whether it is Amazon Prime, or whether like any app which has got content to show you, you are assigned a demographic and psychological profile. And that demographic and psychological profile is basically data collected from every digital interaction that you participate in. If you go and check your computer cookies, you'll find that Facebook, Amazon, Google, they are all tracking um, what you are doing through your you're on the mobile, or whether you're on the whether you're on your laptop. In fact, do this experiment after this. Go to turn your Google Maps on, and then go to a couple of let's say hardware stationery shops or something like that, and you'll start seeing and you'll notice that within a few hours or so, you'll start seeing advertisements for that coming up on your feed. Like genuinely try this. Go to like distinct individual shops, whether if the shops are connected. So for example, go to an LG shop and look for stand in front of a TV, like a smart TV, and talk about that smart TV, or go to some electronic shop and stand in front of a washing machine and start talking about the washing machine with the person there, and then wait for 3-4 hours, and then start see and then look at your feed and start and we'll start seeing some pretty interesting things. So this is an experiment. Please go and do it. So anyways, data is collected from every digital interaction, and they build a profile for you. Who are you? Where are you from? What are your interests, etc., etc., etc. There's a very comprehensive you know model that is created for you. Based on your profile, they they experiment on what is it that compels you to act. What are your triggers? So somebody might be like, you see a post and you get really really angry, and then you start retweeting and posting some kind of thing. So they find, oh, for this particular person, this particular topic is a trigger. Or for this particular person, he really gets calmed down when he sees a cat video, for example. And so the trigger for making that person calm is are these cat and animal videos and stuff like that. So basically what they do is they map your emotional responses. They kind of say that, okay, if I say this, then that person's emotion will be like this, and if I show them this other thing, then that will bring down his emotional response. So why they are doing this? They are doing this because when you are on an app, when you are consuming something, if it is only one type of emotion, you get burnt out and you close that app and you go away. So you need to kind of you know surface content of different types that will elicit different kind of emotional responses for you to be on that app for longer and longer and longer duration. That's why all of these apps have this infinite scrolls and infinite infinite kind of like unending content streams, because they don't want you to let go. They want you to be in the app for as long as possible, and they curate that particular flow based upon your profile and what are the triggers that that compel you to behave emotionally. Next, the platform owner decides what kind of messaging that needs to be surfaced to you. And this is where the ideology piece kind of comes in. So, for example, if you are, let's say you are an American voter, and Elon Musk decides that you must vote for Donald Trump. He can actually say that, okay, I want to give, I want to make sure that any user on X who is based out of US gets a uh, gets a kind of messaging that's pro Trump, that will make that person that will psychologically motivate that person to kind of vote for Donald Trump. And they can absolutely decide it, because this is something that has been proven time and again, that all social media platforms, um, due to their employees, due to their their content moderation teams, have got an ideological bent. and they actually decide what kind of ideological content are streamed to you. So first thing that you must need to understand is that none of these social media apps are neutral spaces. Um, these are uh, 100% ideological battlegrounds, and it's not even Elon Musk who's deciding what is going and what is not going on X. It is individual content moderation teams who are probably way down the food chain, who are actually manipulating numbers and in a particular dashboard, and deciding that, oh, this particular user group needs to see this kind of information. So once that happens, what happens is that every kind of content that is present on that app, every tweet, every Facebook post is sorted and ranked based upon what we call telemetry. Uh, so basically, what you say is that telemetry is in the way that, okay, if this tweet comes up, users spend half a second looking at it, but this other tweet comes up, the user spends 4 seconds looking at it. That means that the second tweet, because the user has spent 4 seconds looking at it, is more interesting and it gets a higher rank. Every content company does this, by the way. Like, this is not, I'm not going into the super details because a lot of this is trade secrets and classified, but the ideological, not the algorithmic structure is pretty much this. Then unfortunately, a lot of these gets ideologically tagged, and they will not say ideological. They will say that, oh, this is like a hateful message because it talks about I don't know. Imagine what that. I'm trying to be as apolitical as possible in the in explaining this, but you can take examples from your regular life to kind of figure out what I'm talking about. Uh, they will say that, okay, this is this particular tweet, even though it has got a higher rank in terms of user engagement, because it is ideologically not aligned with what we want to show in the messaging intent, it gets a lower ranking. That happens across like every piece of information on the in your network is actually then tagged and ranked, and this is happening constantly, like every amount of time, which is measured in hours. This is continuously refreshing, and this is one of the reasons why older tweets and older messages you don't see too often, because there's a time variable that is attached to it, and the moment something is older than 2 days, it kind of goes absolutely down in visibility ranking, so that always fresher and newer content is surfaced to you. So there are n number of things that go into this, but basically the what you need to understand is that content is ranked based upon based upon how effective they are, and how what is the ideological intent behind that, or power behind that content. And then you are shared a customized timeline is built for you, and you are shown that content, whether it is on Twitter, whether it is on Facebook, whether it is on you know whether it is on Netflix, the recommendations, whether it is on TikTok. All of them follow this particular pattern. There was this very interesting study that was done, experiment that was done by this person, who opened the American TikTok and opened the Chinese TikTok, the same company, ByteDance. And he saw that the messaging towards the Americans, the moment the person opened TikTok, was about subversion, was about gender ideology, was about down with the government and all that stuff. But the Chinese TikTok was about how to serve your country better, how to be honorable, how to get advance in life. Like, the way the algorithm worked in US and in China were like total opposites. And this is what again, when I talk about hybrid warfare, this is what the person who is owning that platform gets complete control over the information, and gets complete control over how that like how they will use their platform to subvert and to control your mind, to influence your opinions. So what happens after all of this? You get a timeline. Musk says this, that uh, he acknowledges in this tweet that okay, this is how that algorithm works, but like, how does it happen in reality? Basically, this is how your timeline looks. You can open your Twitter right now and check. If you open your Twitter right now, you'll see this, that you will find that there is a cat video, or a some kind of a whatever the algorithm decided that this is what your escape, emotionally, your escape video is, your escape content is. You'll get that. Then you will get some kind of ideological content. Then you will again get some kind of escape content, because too much of that is going to burn you out, and you will close the app. Then you will again get some kind of neutral content. Then you will again get ideological content, and infinite. This timeline will keep on going in the same pattern. It will repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. You will never get all of this as ideological content. You will never get all of this as escape content. You will never get all of this as neutral content. No, you are always going to get this mix. And this ideological content, whatever you are getting, is 100% decided by the people who are sitting in the back end of Twitter, and not even by the top bosses of Twitter. They are, in most cases, they are done by individual teams. They're done by individual leaders within those organizations, who, you know, using words like, we are against hate, we are against XYZ, we are against this particular ideology, etc., etc. They will influence those, and they will put that, and they will craft that experience for all users of that particular platform. This is the reality of when you are looking at social media. This is what you are subjected to very, very consciously by people who are working in the background on within these companies. And not just, I'll say, this is not just on social media. This is going to be true for your Amazon Prime recommendations. This is going to be true for your Netflix recommendations. Obviously, they have other things. They want their viewership and all of that, but the kind of content and the ones that are shown to you, they will absolutely follow this kind of pattern, in terms of something that is ideological, something that is escape, something that is neutral. It will always follow this particular pattern. And this is how people will get influenced. So when you kind of cast back your mind to a few slides back, when I talked about how do you mentally compel somebody to do certain things, you mentally compel somebody to act upon your wishes, because the reality that which that person is observing is controlled by you. And the way you control the reality that that person is observing are through education, entertainment, and information. And all three of them uses technology to actually create what we call ultra curated content that is going to make you think in a certain way when a certain question is being asked to you. And this is this is where like this is where not owning a particular content platform is actually really, really harmful for you. And when you talk about, are we really free, I'll say that as long as you don't control these platforms, you are never free, because because you will be mentally conditioned to act and to think in a certain way, because you are observing life through these particular lenses only. So what happens? Number one, you give up your freedom of thought. You start doing self-censorship. If I write this on social media, if I write this on Twitter, Twitter to ban kar dega mujhe. Or if I, if I write this on, if I write, I write a joke and then Twitter comes and say that, okay, your account is locked. You lose all your followers, you lose all your this thing, ho gaya account locked. I think there are cases in which YouTube, for example, demonetizes certain videos which are political in nature, and if you take the names of certain people within in a YouTube video, they will not ban it, but they will demonetize it. So the content creator doesn't get any money, and the video absolutely, excuse me, slumps down in the ranking. And then you know Ajit ji actually talks about that, has spoken about this several times in the past year. And next, what is happening is you're outsourcing your ethics and intellectual positions. Since the ideological content that you are seeing is not decided by you, you are completely at the mercy of others to explain how the world is, which is what I call the Dhruvrati phenomenon, where where because all of the newses are branded as fake news or fact checked, etc., etc., and only that person's thing is constantly bombarding you, you start thinking that, okay, maybe what this guy is saying is is the ethical position, and I should be following that. So number one, freedom of thought gaya. Second, you said that no, I don't actually care about all of this. मैं तो वही लिखूंगा what I like. I will write and I will watch. You know what you get is cancelled. You write something, somebody will report you to your HR in work, or somebody will report you to your to your college or something like that, and then there are consequences for that. You are branded as, oh, this guy is a bigot, he is not he's not fit to be in a in a civilized society, isko to hum iske sath to kuch yehi nahi karna hai. So you get lynched. It's a social media lynching that happens, and then you suffer consequences. Once that complaint goes to your college, once that complaint goes to your employer, 99 to 100%, 99% of the times, what will happen is that you will get fired. The HR will say that, okay, you have violated the social media policies of our company. Tata bye bye. 99.99%. This is what is going to happen. We all saw what happened with Nupurji, which are actual physical threats that that came against her because of this directed lawlessness. And then anarchy and lawlessness. You stop caring about people who are so emboldened because they know that their ideological position is supported in the social media. They can brazenly do all sorts of lawless actions without this censorship, without this cancel culture, and anybody who opposes that is getting hit with number one and number two. And that actually gives rise to what is called as brazen lawlessness, where people are empowered to act as if they are beyond the law, and the law actually applies. And there are n number of times where if somebody from one ideological group says a certain thing, then it is people will go like, haha, it's okay. And somebody from another the opposite ideological camp does the same thing, they will get banned and they will get cancelled and they will have like a immense reputation. This goes beyond social media, because this is what creates cover for people to become lawless and create anarchy in real life, because whatever they are doing on the streets is getting defended in social media. So a lot of the things that you say, like somebody is somebody is a terrorist, but no, he is like a school teacher's son only, he is getting air cover. Like, that is still an older example. Think of more recent examples in which absolutely brazen lawless behavior is justified in social media. Why? Because there's no consequence to justifying that actual lawlessness. In fact, there is support for that. There were people who are on Twitter, on social media, who were cheering that, okay, Hamas has done an awesome thing on October 7th. Humne to badla le liya. Even in India, I don't know why that year, but people were celebrating a bloody act of invasion in and absolute butchery of innocents. People were celebrating. Why? And Hamas actually knew that they will have this kind of massive support because there were people within Twitter, there were people within Facebook, there were people within the academia, there were people within entertainment industry who were supporting them, who were saying that yes, these guys are right. They were getting the moral shield from all of this to do actual real life atrocities. And this is the power of hybrid war. This is what this is what defines how do I call this is what defines uh, the aims of somebody trying to wage hybrid war, that you make people act against interest. Like nobody should have any kind of doubt in their mind saying that, okay, somebody coming and shooting a two-year-old kid is a terrorist, is a bad guy. But then you create an intellectual air cover saying that, oh, ye to oppression ke against fight kar raha hai. How is that possible? How are you how are you emboldened enough to put that opinion in a public forum? You are able to, you are emboldened, you have the power to put that kind of obnoxious thoughts in public forum because of this background, because this is the work that has gone off in the that has happened in the background. The Overton window has widened or shifted in a certain way that all these conversations are now possible. All these conversations are allowed. All this air cover to criminality and lawlessness are okay right now, and that feeds into higher and higher types of lawlessness. The more you do this, the more you are enabled. um, the only solution to to getting out of this trap is culture. This is where I stop being a cynic and I stop telling you all sorts of negative. We come back to the light, so as to speak, and we talk about culture, because the solution, the defense against all that stuff, all this that it, all of the things that I told you is about culture. And culture is basically the way that you are doing certain things. It's a shared set of values that allow coexistence. If you and I share the same culture, then you and I can live together in a single society. That is what culture is. But culture is more important because culture gives rise to Swayambodh, or a sense of self. And I love the term Swayambodh. I think Pankaj ji has done a lot to, popularize this term, and it has entered the public consciousness. And I've told him that I am shamelessly stealing this this word and using it anywhere because it captures the essence of what our defense should be against this year. That only when we have a very strong awareness of self will we be able to break past that four guardians that we saw, our experience, the education, the information and entertainment, and see reality as it truly is. And only culture is going to allow you to do it. Only a sense of self or rooted self is going to allow you to uh, fight back against these things, and even build a counter system to counter what is already present, to defeat what is already present. And this is where I want to talk. This is where we kind of do the interesting segue to how does culture help to fight this? For that, we need to understand what are called how does culture really operate? How does culture make up, create what we call a worldview? Culture operates at three layers, and this is the Shine's level of culture. Edgar Schein was a professor in Harvard who created this particular matrix. He did it mainly for organizational, organizational cultures, like company cultures and everything. But it kind of, you can extrapolate it into culture as a whole, in my opinion. So at the level of culture, we have what we call artifacts and behaviors. So I do a namaste. That is an artifact and a behavior of me coming from a Hindu family, and me being a part of the larger Indian culture. It is the most observable thing that you see within a person, and anybody can pick that up. A guy from the US, when he's greeting me, can say that, "Oh, Ratul, you're from India, namaste," and it's a mark of that. The second part is what we called espoused values. It is basically, what do we stand for? What do we believe in? And here also, multiple cultures can have same sorts of, thoughts. So I can say that, oh, I believe that everybody should have, I believe that trees should be saved and nature should be saved. And somebody else will say that, oh, I also believe that nature should be saved. I also believe that nature is, it's very important that we take care of nature. Both of you can agree that you can have shared values. So when America and India talks about shared values and all of that, a part of it is that we sometimes might have the same goal. But where cultures differ is at basic assumption level, which is the core of why do you think that certain things should be a shared value? Why do you think certain things should be a value? So, for example, if I am coming from Upanishadic point of view, and I say that, oh, all of life is, is a tapestry that is connected to Brahma, and we are all, as life, we are all connected to each other. So as a life, I need to take care of everybody's life. So this is a large forest, and I am only a part of that forest. I am not the owner of that forest. All of life is that forest, and it's my responsibility to nurture the whole forest, because in my next life, I might be not born as a human being, but I might be born as a honeybee. So it's better that there is a forest for me in the next year. Somebody else might say that, oh, but I believe that God has given me right to all of this nature, to rule over it. And so, because I own all of this nature, I will take care of it. Both of you are saying the same thing, that I want to take care of nature. But how you are going to take care of nature is going to be completely different based upon these basic assumptions that you have. Like, do you want to be the gardener who takes care of his garden? Or do you want to be a part of the forest in which you are also a living entity? And that is what, culture, a strong sense of culture, that is what that Swayambodh is like. You have not outsourced your thinking, you have not outsourced your ethics to somebody else, but because based upon your culture, based upon the depth that you have gone for in your culture, you have formulated a position, an intellectual and an ethical position, that allows you to counter the Maya that all these apps and all these other things are continuously pushing you and saying that no, and you have now the ability to resist that brainwashing, because your culture is telling you that, okay, this is how certain things are, this is how I believe certain things should be, and whatever you are saying is wrong, because my culture and my rootedness is saying that, oh, this is how, you are saying that white is black, but I am saying that no, black is black. It's something different. So Swayambodh is resistance, going into deep into, and this is a problem. A lot of us have lost touch with the basic assumptions that are present in our culture. We only are very, very bothered about the artifacts and the behaviors, like Diwali mein kitne diya jalaya main. We are sometimes too bothered about this artifacts and behavior level, and we don't go deep into the, the fundamentals of it. And going into the fundamentals is what creates resistance, is what allows you to defeat all the stuff that I talked about yesterday, all the brain control and mind control technology that is there, that's what you're trying to do. I'm just doing a time check. It's 9:40. I kind of lost track of time because it's such a vast subject. I'll try to be like really quick about it. So Samurai Cool. It's a the reason I actually put this out is because I think the Japanese have achieved something which is incredibly wonderful in terms of their own sense of Sayambodh. Um, Japan, when it came out in 1947, sorry, in the post-World War period, and we got independent in 1947, Japan was in a worse state, perhaps than even India. It was an island which had which had been nuked twice. It lost its entire army. It became more or less an American colony for a few years, and it had like the entire economy, industry, farm, like the government institutions, all of those got shattered. This is a story of how the Japanese actually, how do I put it? The Japanese actually refound their Swayambodh. And I try to rush through it because I have spent a lot of time in the early parts of this. The samurais were the warrior caste of pre-modern Japan. I use the word warrior caste because that's what they are. The samurai of Japan, they are only born. You cannot just become a samurai. You are only born as a samurai. There is a whole hierarchical caste system in which they are at the top. Uh, they uh, they were the guys in the Edo period who were running the country. Any government post or any sort of post with power, it was only with the samurais and not with the commoners. The commoners had denied all of those those rights and privileges. Yet today, no one in Japan, or no one in the world, when they hear samurai, thinks of caste system. Like if you replace the word samurai with, let's say, kshatriya, there will be a lot of hullabaloo in a lot of places. But the samurai has been conceived as an ideal across the world, and nobody is really bothered about what they really were, which was that they were a highly hierarchical warrior caste, watertight. You cannot be, you only have to be born as a samurai. You cannot become a samurai. And it's incredible that how samurai has, from what its historical reality is, the samurai has been transformed into an aspirational ideal. Everybody wants to be a samurai because they think it's really cool. Across like the cultural impact, it is incredible. This is one of the earliest taken photos of a group of samurai before the Meiji Restoration and the Japanese Revolt. And across the world, the samurai and the samurai culture has been thought of as the pinnacle of coolness. Everybody wants to be there. And it has transformed. You have, the Western world has actually taken the samurai themes and have, run with it and have created extraordinarily powerful cultural content based upon that aspirational thing. That more than what the samurai was, what the reality of the samurai was, what is the aspirational model of what the samurai is, and that is what really clicks with them. Not just in the field of not just in the field of mass media, or not just in the field of how do I put it, not just in the field of entertainment, but in the field of management. The entire Kaizen, I'm pretty sure you have all heard of the Kaizen model. Toyota does this. It is actually taken from what is called the Book of the Samurai, called Hagakure. And it has it has come down as wisdom from basically what was a manual of ethics for a caste, for a warrior caste in pre-modern Japan. It is astonishing, and now it has completely melded. Like the Darth Vader's helmet is actually a samurai helmet. Like you can actually read up on the influences behind Star Wars and lightsabers and all of that, and you'll see that it's actually an Akira Kurosawa movie called the Hidden Fortress, which acted as the inspiration behind the original Star Wars. So this part is more of a history, and I will rush through it because I think we're kind of out of time. Um, Basically, samurais were the ruling class of Japan, and it was ruled by somebody called the shogun, who was the military chief of the samurai, and who was effective ruler of all of Japan. And every powerful people, Japan was kind of divided into a bunch of clans of samurais, and they all served the shogun, and all the common people were under the subjugation of the samurai. And that is how the reality was for most of the Japanese till the mid 19th century, where Japan was forced to open itself up to the Western world by Americans and the Europeans. And something called as Meiji Restoration happened, in which they abolished the samurai system completely. And Japan modernized and then entered the World War II and then lost. And once they lost, they had this immense crisis where psychologically they were devastated that we have been defeated, our enemies are too powerful. How are we going to survive? Everything is shattered. Psychologically, it was as a people, as as a society, they were at the lowest point of utter hopelessness, and they were only thinking of how we actually just survive and get to the next day. And then the popular culture of Japan, they started to rediscover Japaneseness in multiple different ways, through through technology, through actual implicit study of what the modern world is, in postmodernism, surrealism, etc., etc. They focused a lot on industrialization, and they were looking back at the past through modern lens to create a value, to create an ethic system of something that they can actually look back and say that, okay, we used to be this and we need to return to the greatness, and we'll return to the greatness because we will not turn into Americans or will not turn into somebody else, but we will rediscover what Japanese-ness is. And that was done by the samurai culture. They created incredible works of cinema as well as manga. I have not put the manga in here because it's a bit lesser known, but through cinema and through manga, they actually created firstly within their own countries, this entire samurai world, which people could look back to and people could identify with. And what happened is that those movies were so well made that they found really, like they found a willing international audience, because they talked about universal things. They talked about universal things like, what should a good man do? What happens how should you face a moral crisis? What is good and what is bad? What is honor? What does honor look like? To what extent would you go to actually, uh, to actually maintain your honor? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, not all the movies were glorifying the samurais, but the Overton window of culture, so as to speak, was firmly in that, where they were actually a lot of very in-depth ethical and moral discussions that happened around those particular movies, around those particular genres. Then, as I said, like, they romanticize this particular ideal of the samurai being a representative of Japan to the wider world. And it talks about, and these are inverse actually, but it's paradox that when you make something which is intensely local, but you fill it with universal sentiments, it becomes a universal thing. So the nationalism of the samurai, that okay, Japanese, that you identify the samurai with as as being intrinsic to Japan, but it becomes universally inspiring because everybody then wants, oh, this is really cool. And I also want to be a samurai because the samurais were really cool. Same with the code of ethics. And, somebody might say that, oh, the samurais were too proud. They had this their own code and they would not care about anything else, but following that own code, even at the detriment of everybody else. But somebody would say that, yes, but the fact that they have a code, when in the modern world, sometimes don't have ethics, when we don't have uh, you know we are very low on on role models. Somebody who is acting that way, in which we sometimes can't imagine in a modern world, that becomes an inspiration, and that's what makes them cool. um and then this persona of the samurai, as the drifter with an amazing skill and with code of honor and alone in a lawless world. And you can look at it in the modern, you can just transpose that in a modern world, that you know post industrialization, in modernity, all of us start to become drifter. We have to leave our homes and go to some other city, and for our jobs, and leave our, sometimes leave our country, sometimes leave our family, to kind of do in search of work. We are constantly in a barrage, having to prove ourselves in the professional lives, in terms of what is our skill level, how should I get into, like, what is the level of what is my skill, and is that applicable in the job market, or should I get some new certifications, etc., etc. A code of honor in which a samurai, excuse me, sometimes solves things very simply with a swing of his sword. But we sometimes, or most of the times, we have to commit what I call compromises, because we don't have the strength, or we don't have the power, and when sometimes we see something which is unjust and wrong in front of us, we have to turn our heads away, because it's that it's the confusega, I don't have the power to change this, I might just look away and go and walk away. And these are all the things that actually made the samurai as a really, really cool character. And that particular that particular persona then found its echo across the world. So the Western movies of Sergio Leone, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly, etc., etc., they're all inspired by samurai movies. In fact, in the next clip, it's like you can see how much the movie actually, scene by scene, these movies are actually copied from each other. uh, I'll actually share this clip, but I want to just move ahead. It's a very lovely clip, but I'll share it somehow in the group. But it's a scene by scene copy. So, anyways, people really loved the samurai. Really loved what the really how do I, it's not love. It's more like they really internalized the messaging of these samurai movies, and then it evolved. It's called a crossover, that something that was originally in Japan, a thought and an idea, then became a universal thing. And whether it is the lightsaber, or whether it is the training that Batman has, or whether it is Mad Max alone in a in a dystopia, they all fall then under, they're all influenced directly or indirectly by something that was started in post-war Japan, in the samurai, using the samurai cinema as a way to rediscover Japanese-ness for Japanese people. But now it's like a universal thing, and it's universally aspirational. So, learnings is that universal emotions are relatable universally. um, when you have cultural awareness, it leads to a lot of self-confidence, and it actually protects you against a lot of hostile uh, you know to mental assaults that that sometimes that you are faced with. It gives you the moral clarity and the ethical clarity to problem solve without getting influenced by external forces. Cultural exports are like one of the things is that it's like deeply aspiration. If you do it right, other people then start looking up to you, and that is the beginning of what we can then term as effective soft power. You need to offer, obviously, institutionalize it, and and create that infinite chain I had shown earlier. But the basis of that kind of starts from a really, really strong cultural experience that people would want to be a part of. People would want to say that, okay, this is aspiration and I also want to be a part of something cool. And finally, an idea can cross over without physical manifestation. And I'll give you an example. There's an experiment that I wanted to do a few, but I'll do it only one. Everybody, if you open your phones and you go to Google and search for yoga and click on Google Images, please, you can do it. Like, please open your phone, go to Google and type YOGA, yoga, and click on Google Images and tell me how many Indians you see. Do this experiment. And then you will see, um, it will give you an idea of what is crossover and what can get digested and what does that even look like today, and where we are in terms of owning up to our own culture. Some suggested reading, I'll share these slides with Anugraha. You can share this for anybody who wants to further read on these subjects. um yeah like, these are all very, very heavy books. Definitely recommend Kaushik Gangopadhyayji's The Majoritarian Myth. It's one of the finest books on this subject that has come up in the recent years. And yeah, arigato gozaimasu, thank you. This was a really, really, you know, I had to really, really rush to the last parts of the presentation because it was getting really late. I'm very, very sorry for that. To take up your time on a weekend. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It was not too overwhelming or boring, and we can take some questions if time permits.
Thank you so much for such a mesmerizing session on Maya Yuddha, Ratulji. The session was really insightful and engaging. So now before wasting time, let's proceed to the next part. Before proceeding to question and answer round, I would request all the participants to kindly turn on their cameras so we can get a good picture with our visionary speaker all together. Can the participants turn on the camera?
Now participants can turn on their cameras. Earlier it was disabled for the participants. अब ऑन कर सकते हैं आप लोग.
Thank you so much. If the participants have any questions or doubts, they're free to raise their hands or write their questions in the chat box. Our speaker will address these questions in the question and answer segment. Your participation and curiosity made this session truly special. Thank you for being a part of this journey.
Okay, I can see one question, couple of questions that have come from Atulji and from Ravi Chauhanji. More of like, what is the solution? I think it's and Atulji is mentioning that culture and Swayambodh is the only solution, but it's an Indian culture which is today highly dominated by low culture and scarcity mindset. Corrupted by the millennia of humiliation, is really ready to counter this Maya Yuddha. I think we are not at a worse position than what Japan was in 1946. I think we are, we are in a far, 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 far better position than what the Japanese were. And it is up to us to create that culture, to create something that is worthwhile, to create to create experiences that will be aspirational for folks to kind of move in. And it is difficult. There is only one Akira Kurosawa. There, but we have to keep on bashing and creating culture. One of the things that I always say, that imagine after 500 years an archaeologist come to India and is digging up, and what is it that they will find about us? Okay, what are the cultural artifacts that we are leaving behind that would last for, forget about 500 years, for the next 10 years, for the next 15 years? I think when you have something like the itihasas and the Puranas which have survived for millennia, we have Ramcharitmanas which have survived for centuries. We already have the blueprint of what endures, and we have to go back to that blueprint instead of directly copying stuff, or instead of being experienced, or instead of taking shortcuts. We have to go back to what is the root of Indianness and be fearless about it. That, okay, this is the root of Indianness and this is what we are going to do. So yes, it is difficult, but it is not impossible, because I don't think that the Japanese were at a superior position to us in 1946. We are at a far better position compared to them, what they were at that point. We just need to figure out what our core values are, And this is my recommendation and this is my request, try making works of art, try making pieces of culture that last. Tweet is not good enough. It just goes off in the ether after 6 hours. Nobody will remember that tweet. But a book, a piece of movie, a sculpture, a play that you have written, those things are going to last. So please, start thinking in terms of things that last, things that will endure, and those things will only come from elements that are our core values. And once we identify those core values, let's and a lot of it is skill. You need to have that skill to kind of build that, and but you'll never get that skill by not attempting. So we have to generate culture from our side, and the moment we start generating culture, we will get better at it. But right now the problem is at the generation stage. We are not generating enough rooted culture. That's just my opinion on this. Next we say that we focus on Ram Rajya. Dhuandhar Atawatji is saying we focus on Ram Rajya, but can we counter the Maya Yuddha by stages of Ashoka Rajya and Gupta Rajya, even the lower ideals of Bhoja Rajya and Prithvi Vallabh Rajya? Look at a setup as Raja Raja Chola or Pulakeshi or Harsha. Use our emperors as lower stages in the ideal towards the final goal of Ram Rajya. I think all of these rulers were also trying to create Ram Rajya only. And I don't think it's a step. I think it's an evolution that once we start, being, once we stop compromising on our core values, then the iterations will begin and we will start getting towards Ram Rajya. The problem that happens right now is that the core values itself are in conflict with each other. Like, if you ask 20 people in the streets, like, what are the core values of you as an Indian, as a part of Bharatvarsha, they would probably have like 20 different answers. And the only way to synthesize that and bring commonality there is through culture, is when they see, is through culture and education, obviously. Like, only when they are taught the fundamentals at the right age, and only when they see stories which reconfirm what is heroism, what is an ideal, what are the ethics that are to be emulated, then these values will start aligning, and then the iteration will begin. And that political consensus and the political process of of getting towards Ram Rajya will only begin once at the public level we are all aligned that we want Ram Rajya. Right now I don't think even that alignment is there, because people have very, very different understandings of what Ram Rajya is and all. But all the things that you have mentioned, of whether it is Ashoka or whether it is the Guptas or whether it is Raja Raja, all of them wanted to build Ram Rajya only. Like, if you look at the Prashastis and uh, everything, they were all claiming that we are Vishnu's representative on earth and we are ruling as per dharmic instructions, dharmic conjunction. So it is it is not about how do I put it? It is not about what we are. It is not about the steps that are going to take there in terms of political steps. For even to approach that, we first need a social and cultural, swayambodh, to kind of get back to the world, to even figure out that, okay, this is something we want. Right now, I don't think enough people want the same thing. That's what the is. Any other questions or any other? No, I don't think there is anything.
Ratulda, I can see a few questions. Abhishek ji asked, when would we be able to say Sarkar unka hai to kya hua, system to hamara hai? And Anhita asked that what are the sources to understand the true Indian history? Please suggest some writers. Thank you.
Okay. The second one is, so right now I think there are a lot of there's a lot of good work that's happening on the second front in terms of true Indian history. I think Meenakshi Jain ji's book, I think they are definitely one of the foundational things that everybody should read. Definitely read Dharampalji's book, because it deals fundamentally with the lies that the British had. Yes, I think Vishwanath Dhurandaji is mentioning. Yeah, so definitely read Dharampalji, which actually talks about this the education system. It is called Beautiful Tree, and it talks about the educational system that was thriving in India when it was destroyed by the British, and how how they did it. I think R.C. Majumdar's collection is like really, really good. Vikram Sampath has set up an institution whose charter is basically to write books on true Indian history. So definitely look out for things. I would really recommend the Indica site, Indica Today website, which has got a ton of information about these things. There are some really, really high quality articles, that appear there. So, there are a lot of sources. I think we are at a much better stage right now than we were 10 years ago. Second is, when would we be able to say Sarkar unka hai to kya hua, system to hamara hai? I think Sarkar and system both hamara is the end goal to get to. So, like, I think वो दोनों ही करना पड़ेगा, otherwise मुश्किल है. हाँ, and the system जो है, like, unless we have the clarity to destroy that, सरकार हमारा है stage is will be becoming more and more difficult. So this is where we kind of need to really figure things out. K.M. Munshiji, yeah, I think that's a good, yeah. There is one question about the idea of shared roots was Cambodian Indian experience, Howard. So while I cannot officially announce anything, I think this is something that is well understood. I will stop here. But the point that you are making is very, very valid, and it's well understood. Like, I cannot say more than this. That's sir, don't you feel that, I mean, so one of the things that I told Anugrah also is that please don't call me sir, I am Ratul only. So please address me directly. Don't you feel that even if we succeed in serving the world about our culture, the one side of it will be the Western version of it, and actual essence of the cultures and roots will be lost at some level? So this is what my Yuddha is, how to overcome this. I think one of the so the Maya Yuddha part is when somebody will try to compel you to act against your own self-interest and act for their self-interest without putting a gun in your head. They will manipulate you emotionally, and they will hijack your ethics so that you behave as they. So the point is not about surfacing our culture to the Western world. That is not the objective. That is one of the outcomes. The objective is to get in touch with our own roots so that we have our own ethics system and our own sense of morality and our own way of looking at the world. That is the objective. बाहर के लोगों को पसंद आया कि नहीं आया, it is immaterial. We should have that confidence that even if everybody else hates us, we are what we are. हम तो ऐसे ही है भैया. We should have that confidence. गर्व से कहेंगे, we know. So वो है, मतलब Maya Youth is not going to be overcome by showcasing our stuff to Western. ये वो तो अलग ही चीज है. When we don't feel the need, when we don't feel compelled to showcase ourselves to Western and get their approval, is when we have defeated Maya Youth. We have to be like super confident in what we are and who we are. Stop self-loathing completely, and not take false pride, but go back to the real ethics and real roots of who we are. A lot of times, as I said, like we think more about how many crackers we did in Diwali than the actual roots of what our ethics or what our ethical system is. And so we need to go down to the roots. And good culture is only going to be created once we go to the absolute roots and then work upwards. वरना वो आदि पुरुष होगा, वो उससे आगे नहीं जाएगा वो. So more writers belonging to the pre-independence era. I think Jadunath Sarkar, definitely. I think he has done, like, he has a whole series. Parega India mein pura, I think it's available. R.C. Majumdar's, definitely. I think these two are going to last you for a really long time. One thing that I would recommend is read a translation of Kalidasa's Raghuvamsam, because it captures all the, it captures all the, what can I say, the entire history of the Raghuvamsa. And when you read about how Kalidasa has spoken about all of them, you actually see a, cultural evolution there also. And it is, based upon Itihasa. So, that's probably more an offbeat, not an answer that you were expecting, but definitely, you should look at it. What direction will the cultural war take in Bengal?
Well, I assume that is the difficult question for you to answer.
It's a very tricky question because because there are multiple dimensions to it. A lot of it, like, I can tell you a lot of things, but perhaps it is not appropriate in this forum. That's what I feel. It's how do I put it? There are a lot of things that people who are outside of Bengal will not understand about what's some of the stuff that's happening here, both good and bad, I would say. But it will. I don't think it's like this conversation.
Maybe we can reschedule it to some later date, some other day, some other instance.
It's like Bengal is like this particular question about Bengal. Like if you were asked me about Bengali culture in a different way, like that would have been something that I could have answered. But the present, this thing, I think that it's way too complex and nuanced right now to kind of get into. Anybody else?
By this, I think we should wind up. It's already a bit late. So thank you so much.
I'm really sorry that I have taken up your weekend.
No, Ratulda.
I had.
No, absolutely not, Ratulda. See, I always tell you the same thing. In spite of the fact that the session lasted for pretty long, there are still people who are willing to ask more questions. So that kind of proves the fact that what I asked you to do earlier. You can be a very good faculty because you have got that X factor which can keep the audience hooked for more. But nevertheless, I genuinely would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart that you have given us a good weekend by kind of sacrificing your weekend. So thank you so much, and I request Kanishka ji to kindly offer the vote of thanks and proceed on, and also try to book Ratulda for another session so that we can kind of extract more of what he holds for the benefit of the larger mass. Because this is a domain which I don't think many people in India or even abroad know more about. Most of us are ending up becoming or falling to the hands of these big tech companies who are using our data, not only using our data, but also leveraging the data to manipulate us. And unless and until we kind of gain consciousness about this manipulation deliberately being done by these companies, we'll never be able to come out of it. So Ratulda holds that red pill for us, using which we can perhaps try to come out of the matrix.
It's my
Definitely,
ardent
definitely.
hope that like I see. Here's the thing, like a lot of times what we think and what it really is are like very, very different, and that's why like people tend to turn cynical, because when we grow up, when you get to say that, oh, newspapers are neutral and everything is it's as it is supposed to be, like this myth of neutrality, as we grow up we start to see it shatter. And the same thing is happening in social media, and I'm hoping that this myth gets shattered, because unless it gets shattered there will be no self-awareness. So I hope that whoever has heard, or you know you try to kind of see what I spoke about in the see their timeline and see like how it gets but like unless you yourself realize this, you will not understand the true danger that we are in. And then my hope is that you tell it to two other people, because without that self awareness, we are going to become a nation of consumers. We will consume and will think. And when I say consumers, it's not just consuming goods and not just consuming that iPhone. We are consuming an entire thinking process that somebody is giving and telling us, and we are saying that, okay, this morality that has come from US is my morality, this red line that has come from US is my red line. Men will start going into women's bathroom if they say that I am a woman. वो दिन हमको इधर नहीं देखना है. So
Absolutely.
we have to take a stand now, or else we'll create a generation which is born now. The coming generation, it's born with the screen in hand,
Yes.
and that generation will not be saved, because they will not have the right culture to protect themselves. We are probably the last generation who can do this, because
Yes.
after that, you are growing up in a digital world without those uh, you know cultural pillars to hold on to and save yourself from this. So karmanya vadikaraste ma phalechu kadachana. We have to keep doing this, even if it is frustrating.
No, it's not at all frustrating, provided we have got beacons of hope like you in front of us guiding us. So yeah, Kanishka ji, over to you.
I truly agree with you, Anugraji, that he mentioned. We'll definitely want to stay connected with him in further more sessions. This time we do have a time constraint. Next time we'll try to overcome that. Now, with that enthusiasm, I would like to call upon Pushpendra ji to do the vote.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कनिष्का जी। तो आप सभी लोगों का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। हमारे आज के वक्ता महायुद्ध, जो इस YTF टॉक का विषय हम लोगों ने तय किया, और इस युद्ध में हम सब समुराई बने, जो हमारे वक्ता ने हमें बताया, इसी उद्देश्य के साथ, इसी विचार के साथ कि हम सब इस पर थोड़ा सा और अध्ययन करेंगे, विचार करेंगे। और सर, मैं एक बात आपसे कहना चाहूंगा कि आपने कहा कि वीकेंड आपने खराब कर दिया। मुझे लगता है कि कल पूरे संडे का जो आपने हमें काम दे दिया कि अब हमको और इसमें क्या क्या ढूंढ सकते हैं, पढ़ सकते हैं, समुराई के बारे में पढ़ सकते हैं, इतनी अच्छी पुस्तकों के बारे में हमें पता चला। तो ये एक अच्छा अवसर था। जो हमारे अभी साथी हैं हम लोगों के साथ, कई सारे लोग कुछ समय के कारण से नहीं है, तो उन सब ने भी जो सीखा, पीपीटी आपकी बहुत अच्छी थी, उसके लिए भी हम आभार ज्ञापित करते हैं। आदरणीय अनुग्रह जी का भी मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ कि वो आपको हम लोगों से रूबरू कराया उन्होंने। हमारे यंग थिंकर्स फोरम के डायरेक्टर आशुतोष जी, जो हमें निरंतर इस वाईटीएफ और यंग थिंकर्स फोरम के अलग अलग कार्यक्रमों के माध्यम से हम जैसे युवाओं को आगे लेकर के आ रहे हैं। साथ ही हमारे सभी चैप्टर कोऑर्डिनेटर्स, जिन्होंने इसको प्रमोट करने के लिए अपना काम किया। और इस वाईटीएफ टॉक में जो टीम हमारी थी, हमारे सभी मेंबर्स का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और सबसे अंत में हमारे पार्टिसिपेंट, हमारे श्रोता, जो निरंतर अपना समय इसको सुनते रहे और जिन्होंने अपने व्यस्त दिनचर्या में समय निकाला। इसी के साथ रतुल्ला, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.